Oh my gosh, guys, it is so hot. You want to know one thing I have never complained about in my life and won't? I'm gonna do it right now. It'll be the first time and the last time, is being hot. I would never talk about this. I didn't grow up with air conditioning. I know a lot of you can relate, but my father was a horseman specifically. So it was very common if we're driving down the road, we got a horse trailer and we're moving horses from one place to another. And sometimes that was even out of state. We'd have to go to Churchill Downs, or we'd have to get them, right? We'd have to get them to the paddock at Antioch Downs. It could be 14, 20 hours in a truck. And my dad would never turn the air conditioning on because the horses didn't have air conditioning. So he didn't think it was fair. He didn't think that us turning AC on was fair when they're in the horse trailer standing in the hot of day. And if we could match them, at least temperature-wise, we would know when they needed to rest and when they needed water. It was this whole thing. I don't know anything about it. Didn't grow up with air conditioning. Don't care about it. Used to practice in a room that had a great big industrial, commercial-sized heater, and it would be hot enough anyway, and Coach Pitman would turn that heater on. It was the only thing you'd hear. We didn't have music playing or a radio going. You had this furnace going because Coach Pitman had the theory that which I think he's right, you're less likely to be hurt if your body is warm. And then coming through as a wrestler, we had saunas attached to the workout room. After practice every day, no matter what, no matter how tired you were, just by habit. It was just like showering or changing your clothes or walking out to the car. Just by habit, you leave the practice room, you go get in the box. You get in the sauna. So you will never hear me complain about being hot. And I can remember many people in the practice room. I'll go back to the Coach Pitman days. I would be out on the mat sweating and we're dying and we got one water break in a 2-hour period. I remember being so hot. And I could still remember the mothers, and I could give their names out right now, that would be sitting on the side watching practice and fanning themselves because it was so hot in there. And they would literally be making faces. And I remember looking up and going, we're doing the practice. You're sitting on your butt. And therefore are the reasons I would never complain about heat. And why do I bring it up today? Because it's so hot where I am, it causes me to sweat. And when I start to sweat and I get it above my lips, you guys spot it. And I used to never know this. Before I had this studio, started doing the YouTube channel, I was doing a podcast, I would get into my car, I would put a lav mic on, and then I would have a buddy in the passenger seat filming me. And I would drive around. We called them car videos, but that was the studio. When it was time to go to the studio, that's when I went and got in the truck. And we just drove around. And I remember one of the very first days, because I was just doing hot laps around my neighborhood. I'd pull up to the stop sign, turn here. I would do it for like an hour. And my buddy Ryan was telling me, hey man, you need to go somewhere else. You're going around the same neighborhood. You're passing the same houses. You're passing the same cars. And the viewers are going to know. And I remember thinking that was such a ridiculous statement. But how... Nobody is that observant. Nobody. I didn't even know that I was doing it for the last 45 minutes until you pointed out. We put the piece out. Sure enough, you guys recognize the houses. And you recognize the cars. And you recognize the bus that I kept passing. And it was one of these things that over time turned into something pretty funny. I remember being in that very truck one day and a bird left us a present. That was in the shot. And the kids online, so good with the Photoshop, they were taking it, they were sending it around. It turned into a whole, do you call it a meme? You call it a meme? What do you call that? Meme? Turned into this whole meme. So why am I pointing it out? I'm pointing it out so that when you guys say, hey, Chael, you're up there sweating, I'm aware. I'm aware I am. I'm on the second story. It's a hot day in Oregon. The air conditioner decided to break. And I don't care about air conditioning anyway. Been in plenty of hot rooms. I'm sitting on my ass. People are out working in the heat. I would never complain about the heat. I pointed out today to beat you guys to it. Oh, and by the way, which brings me to a point about Stipe. How does my air conditioner being broke, you ask? How does the bird leaving me a gift and how does me doing hot laps in my own neighborhood on my first week on YouTube tie me into Stipe Miocic? I will tell you how. When you make a video, you need to have something called a hook so that when I go to make a thumbnail for this, you guys can click on it. My AC being broken is likely not to do that, but the heavyweight champ is, and he made a comment. He made a comment which is as follows. I am 100% positive I can beat Francis in a rematch. I know what my mistakes were, and weight is not a big deal for me. Focus on that last part. What does he mean? What does Stipe mean when he says weight is not a big deal for me? Because 2 weeks ago, he came out and said he was going to try to get up to 250 pounds, rematch Francis, and that's a very different fight. 20 pounds of muscle on Stipe Miocic, that's a very different fight considering he's been more competitive with Francis, representative of making it into the second round, taking 4 of his shots and lasting 7.5 minutes. He's been more competitive with Francis than anybody else in the last 2 years has been. But what does he mean weight isn't a big deal for me? Did he mean that is not a stipulation I put on myself, send me that contract, I'll sign it, I'll go fight him whatever I weigh? Or does he mean I gain weight easily? I don't know. I don't know. He didn't elaborate on it. And I am hoping it's option B. I'm hoping he's saying he can gain weight easily because I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the John Jones experience of trying to gain weight. I was intrigued when Adesanya gave up the weight and moved up a weight class. Like, that's a real thing for me to some degree, because when you do have a guy as good as Stipe, it was very clear when he was in there with Francis, there was a size difference. And at heavyweight, there generally is a size difference, but it's not clear, right? That's very different. These guys had so much separation when they were on the stage at the weigh-in the day before, when they were doing the press conference the day before, when the actual fight started and the referee got out of the way the night of. Man, these guys don't weigh the same thing. I got a buddy, Nick Gwizdowski, right now. Multiple-time NCAA champion, 2-time world bronze medalist. And he just lost the Olympic spot to a guy named Gable. Now, where that becomes interesting is Nick beat Gable for last year's wrestle-off. So it's the same guys, but 12 months later, and it was a very different series. It's a very different series. I talked with Nick, What did you learn? Where do you go from here? And he just said, man, that guy put on 20 pounds of muscle since the last time I wrestled him. I felt every damn pound of it. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to do exactly what he did to me. I'm going to go do it to everybody else. I'm going to put on 20 pounds of muscle. Interesting experiment. It's very interesting, particularly hearing this from Nick, because it is what just happened to him. What was the big difference in his match with Gable? I mean, it was only 12 months removed. What was the big difference in the score? Well, Gable was noticeably more man. He was noticed. He was like a different athlete, and it was 20 pounds, which happens to be the exact amount of weight that Stipe, according to a press conference 2 weeks ago, or a press clip rather, said he wanted to gain. Instead of coming in at low 230s, he wants to come in at low 250s. I'm interested in that. I'm interested, but I also understand the discipline that it takes to lose weight and to gain weight. And I found it a little concerning when Stipe said weight wasn't a big deal to him. What does that mean? And I'm griping on this for a reason. I'm griping on it because of this is a mental approach to eat more calories, to lift more weights, to consume more proteins, to do all the things that you have to do to gain 20 pounds the right way of muscle is an absolute commitment. And I'm not certain, based on that statement by Stipe, that he is committed to it. And if he's not committed to it, it's not going to happen. I will tell you, gaining weight, it's different, but it's just as hard as losing weight. So if anybody knows what old Stipe meant, not a big deal meaning not a deal breaker, or not a big deal meaning I can do it handily, if you've got the answer, fill me in.